Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the true crime case which has been solved of Paige Doherty. She was a 15-year-old girl who lived in Clydebank, Scotland. And as usual, I'd just like to give the disclaimer that I've gathered all this information from the internet and compiled it into a video. I mean, no disrespect about anybody that I speak about in this video. I've just made it for educational purposes. Paige lived with her mother, Pamela Monroe, her stepdad, Andy, her sister and brothers. Pamela and Paige had a really close relationship, and she described her as being respectful, loving, and her best friend. One Friday night, Paige stayed at a friend's house. The following morning, Saturday the 19th of March 2016, Paige set off for work. She worked in a hairdresser's part-time. So Paige was always on social media and always texting people and letting them know how she was and saying good morning and things like that. She was a very social person. So when it got to about midday and her boyfriend Dylan had not heard a word of her, he started to get a little bit worried because, as I said, it's not in her character to normally do that. She'd normally send him a good morning text or anything like that, and of course he was expecting it. This never arrived, however. Dylan decided to ring her work just to make sure that she'd got in okay, that everything was fine. However, when her boss answered, he said that she hadn't arrived. Dylan then decided to ring Paige's mum, Pamela. Obviously, she may not have turned up for work today. Maybe she was a bit ill, something like that. So he rang her to see whether she was still at home. Paige was obviously not at home, and Pamela had actually realised that she hadn't heard of her either, and she didn't actually know where she was. So they checked her social media because, again, she was always on it and always posting, always liking, things like that. When they checked it, they realised that her last activity, as you like, on the social media was the night before. Again, this was totally out of character for Paige. She was always on social media, so she would have been on it that morning and would have liked to post or posted something or anything. There was just no social activity whatsoever. So of course they did start to get worried at this point. This was so out of character for Paige, they realised that something was wrong. And due to this, they decided to contact the police. The police arrived and Paige's friends were all posting all over social media trying to find out where she was, asking anyone that may have seen her to let them know. At this point it was getting late and they had heard nothing still. So the police put together a search team. They had also a volunteer search team to look at the surrounding area and try and find any sign of Paige. Now, it's quite usual for people to run away from home, but in Paige's case, she was very happy at home. She was only 15 years old and she only had a part-time job. And because of this, the police didn't really concentrate on that aspect of it because, of course, she could have run away from home, but she hadn't contacted any of her friends, nothing. And with her not being in a full-time job and having the finances to do that, she would have had to stay with somebody, contacted somebody and let them know where she was. So the fact that nobody had heard of her whatsoever led the police to believe that, although an option, it was not the most likely one. Her family and friends set up a Facebook page called Help Find Paige. This is where they shared pictures, her name, the clothes that she wore that day, the route that she could have taken to work, just praying that somebody may have seen something. And obviously social media is really great when it comes to spreading the word of things like that. So missing person cases, a lot of people who say have run away or whatever are actually found due to Facebook and social media aspects, so they do come in really handy. Police obviously retraced the steps. They followed the route on which she would have taken from her friend's house in the morning. There is a local bus stop very close to her friend's house, which is the one she would have taken to go to work. And on that bus stop, there were 5 shops aligning the street. Of course, they went into each and every shop to see whether they had any CCTV or anything like that. The first shop was owned by Ashi Ahmed, and he had told them that yes, he did see Paige in the morning. It was probably about 8:15. She walked past his shop and towards the deli. He waved at her good morning and she put up her hand in response. He told them that she had gone to Delicious Deli, which was a store owned by John Latham a couple of shops down. He He had said that he later spoke to John and that John had said that Paige was her happy, normal self, didn't seem anything wrong, she didn't seem stressed, she was just normal. Like I said before, the police did request a CCTV for inside and out of the store. Now, only one of those stores actually had outdoor CCTV, which was Ashley Ahmed's. This CCTV ran on a 12-day cycle, and the police decided that they would take just 3 hours to sift through around about the time that Paige would have been there to see what direction she went in as she left the store. Did she catch the bus? Did she go in a different direction? To try and retrace her steps, really. They requested this footage and they were waiting on its arrival as well as it being formatted into their system when they received a phone call. It was Monday, the 21st of March 2016, just 48 hours after Paige went missing, that they received a phone call from a dog walker to say that he had found human legs sticking out from under a bush. He'd found a body. The police attended the scene, cordoned it all off and confirmed that it was in fact a female body. And this was just half a mile from where Paige was last seen. The police asked Paige's family to come and check to see whether this body they had found was in fact Paige's. At the time there were 3 missing girls, and one of which was blonde and the other 2, including Paige, were brunettes.
The police said it was maybe a 20-year-old girl, and I was like, can it be Paige because she's tiny, she doesn't look 20, you couldn't mistake her for a 20-year-old, but I knew on the Saturday night that something had happened to her because she hadn't contacted me. But then when you hear on the Monday that body's been found, like, and it's like 5 minutes over the back for us, I was like, it's got to be her. I says, it's not the blonde girl because you wouldn't be at my door. I said, so if the other person shows up with the brown hair, then it's Paige. But they try and get you to think positive and things, but as a parent, it's your worst nightmare, so you always go through everything. And I think it was about 10:30 that night, the other wee girl showed up, and I was like, I know, it's definitely her, but...
Gut feeling?
As I say, I knew on the Saturday night, I kept saying to everybody, something's up there, something's happened, you're going to need to prepare yourself, and they're like, no, she'll show up, but she's just totally out of character, totally.
On Tuesday, Paige's family went down to identify the body. And as Pamela stated in her interview, she did already know that it was her daughter Paige because the other missing girl with the brunette hair had already turned up. And of course, they wouldn't have been contacting her if the body they had found had blonde hair. A post-mortem was performed and it came to light that she died due to blood loss from multiple stab wounds. Now, there are a few variations on the amount of stab wounds that she has, so I do apologise that this may not be the exact one, but I've just gone with the one that is the most common in those articles, and the most common one states that she was stabbed 61 times. Yes, Paige Doherty was stabbed a total of 61 times with 150 injuries. And I must admit, the sheer amount of wounds that Paige suffered did actually shock me. It appears that there were 3 different weapons used to cause such severe damage, and the police actually believe that these weapons were a knife, a pair of scissors, and a screwdriver. Seems that this was kind of more planned in my eyes. Whoever was the murderer didn't just grab something off the side and start attacking her. They actually used 3 different weapons to do so and caused so much damage, and it seemed like they wanted to prolong her suffering.
The papers will say she was stabbed like 126 times or something like that, but she was stabbed a lot more, and she was stabbed with more than just a knife. There was a couple of weapons.
As per the interview, Pamela did believe that her daughter was stabbed many more times than this. 500 is what she claims.
She had a hole like the size of your fist in her neck, like half her neck was gone. Like, that's no an accident. You don't accidentally stab somebody in the region of 500 times. So they said like it was slashes and defence wounds, but it was a lot worse than that. A lot.
And she believes that the media were withholding some of this information and downplaying her injuries a little bit. And the media also never stated that more than one weapon was used. The injuries Paige suffered were mainly to her body and the left side of her head and neck. Again, while the police waited for the footage, they obviously interviewed the other shopkeepers and anyone who could have seen Paige that fateful morning. They went to speak to John, the owner of the deli, the shop in which Paige was last seen. Now, the strange part about this is that when they asked if John had seen her, knew who she was, he said no. He stated that he has many customers that come in all the time and he can't keep track of them. He doesn't know who's who, which I find a bit strange, because if you do own a shop and people come in all the time, which Paige was, she was a regular, she did go in there a lot, you would get a rapport with people and you would start learning who was who, especially with it being the small town that it was. Then all of a sudden, John remembered that yes, in fact, he did see Paige that morning. He told the police that she was acting normal, nothing strange. She came in, she bought her breakfast, and then she left to catch the bus. This was the last time that she was seen. Police suspected that Paige didn't actually make it to the bus that morning due to the fact that her body was found in this town. If she had gotten on the bus and was murdered in the town where her job was, then why would somebody then bring her back to the town she lived in? So they estimated that in between the shop and the bus stop, that was when she was attacked. And finally, the footage was ready. So the police viewed this footage, which saw Paige go into the deli around 8:21. They continued to watch this footage to, like I said, see which direction she went in. Did she go towards the bus? Did she go a different way after she left this shop? However, Paige never left the deli store in the time that they watched the 3 hours footage. They watched, they waited, but Paige did not leave. They, of course, took in John Latham for questioning, and they asked him for any CCTV he had from the inside of his store. He willingly gave this over, said, yep, take a look at it, to which the police did, and they found something very suspicious, which was on the day that Paige was known to be in his store, most of the footage was missing. In fact, it was missing so much that it never even showed Paige enter at all. I do not know what reason John actually gave the police to state as to why this footage was missing. The police then went back to Ashi Ahmed's store to get the full 12-day loop of footage to see whether Paige ever did come out. They had numerous people playing out this video for hours and hours, and Paige never ever left that store. Due to this, the police sent down a forensic team to the deli, fearing that this was where she might have been attacked. And while scouring the footage, they did come across some odd occurrences involving John Latham. At around 10 AM, the footage showed John running from his store to another store a bit further down, buying a few items and then running back. At the time, it was noted that his store was actually closed, so he had closed up his shop and left to buy a few items. But these actions were very odd. Why was he in such a rush if his store had closed? If it's closed, there's nobody waiting to enter, so why did he feel the need to run back and forth? At 10:03, he walks to his car, opens his boot, or his trunk, as people like to call it, and he appears to be rummaging and sorting things out to kind of make room for something. And it was then in unreleased footage, so obviously I cannot show you this, but I can let you know what happened. John exited his shop with a very large black bag. He proceeded to walk over to his car, nearly taking out a child on his way. He then placed the black bag in his car, seemingly as though he was taking out his rubbish. At 11:59 AM, John then gets into his car and drives away with the bag still in the boot. And of course, these were all alarm bells ringing for the police. Why did John close his shop? Why was he running about buying things? And what was in that large black bag that meant he had to close his store, take it to his car himself, and get rid of the rubbish when we have been meant to do that for us? Why would he put himself out of business to go and take a bag out when it could have been done by the bin men. This behaviour was very suspicious. On Thursday the 25th of March, John was arrested on the suspicion of the murder of Paige Doherty. John, being 31 at the time, a father of two who was married, seemed like an ordinary guy. And initially, when he was questioned, it seemed that he did stick to his story that Paige came in, he was making her breakfast, they was chatting normally, and then she left. Even though the footage showed that this was a complete lie. As I stated before, the footage did show John leaving and purchasing some items from the store. What these were, you might ask, well, he actually bought bin bags, bleach, and antibacterial wipes. This is becoming more and more suspicious. 2 days after his arrest, John appeared in a private court and did not make a plea. It was only on the 5th of September 2016, 6 months after Paige's murder, that John Latham appeared in court and pleaded guilty to the murder of Paige Doherty. Why did he actually kill her, you may ask? Well, according to John's story, he had said that she had come into his store, ordered a breakfast, so he was making it for her, she was doing light chit chat, making conversation. She then decided to change subject and started going on about how much she hated her job and she wanted a new one. She then apparently asked John if she could have a job at the deli. She decided that she wanted to work there. He said, of course you can. So he told her that she would need to fill in a form at the back and he would then obviously do an interview, etc. So she did. She went into the back. She began filling in this form, and this was when John said he saw her age, which was 15. He let her know that he couldn't hire her due to her age. According to John, Paige then turned nasty in a sense. She said to him that if he didn't give her a job, that she would call the police and tell them that John had tried to touch her. John began to panic at this point. He did not want to go on a sex offenders list as it can ruin your life, so he decided, hey, I'm not going to let Paige ruin my life, I'm going to murder her. He grabbed a knife and began stabbing her. I mean, this just completely eludes me. The fact that he didn't want to go on the sex offenders register because that would ruin his life. He decides to murder a 15-year-old girl. I mean, I just cannot comprehend. Okay, so if Paige did threaten him, obviously that's not great, but the response is never murder. Again, this was just John's story as to what's happened. Pamela, Paige's mother, does not believe this at all. And I must say myself, I definitely do not. And nor do many other people, to tell you the truth. Paige had a job. She was a part-time hairdresser. She loved being into beauty and hairdressing, and it was what she wanted to do for a career. So why she would then decide all of a sudden, I want to work in this deli shop. Obviously it is possible, but it's highly unlikely because she had the job that she had dreamed of and that she wanted to pursue a career in.
He obviously gave an excuse that Paige blackmailed him and a lot of rubbish. She didn't have that. Everybody that knew Paige knew she had a job anyway, but like she just didn't have any malice in her at all. She wouldn't do it. But I think that he's tried something with her. Paige, like, she's got morals. She would have been disgusted.
On the 12th of October 2016, John Latham was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 27 years. The murder weapons have never been found, and he never actually told them what they were or what he did with them. The police just speculated due to the wounds what weapons were actually used. Incredulously, John later appealed his sentence, stating that it was too excessive. And even more obscure, the court agreed. He managed to knock 4 years off his sentence. No one truly knows why John Latham decided to murder Paige Doherty that fateful morning. And it's up to you, obviously, who you want to believe. You may even have your own separate theory on why John did it. In my opinion, I personally agree with Pamela. I think that maybe John did try something on with Paige, and due to the fact of being rejected, he saw red and just began stabbing her, causing him to brutally end this poor innocent girl's life. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you on the case of Paige Doherty. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!